Deuteronomy. We're getting into chapters 20 through the end to 34. And we're going over the laws and statutes and precepts that Mighty God AHAYAH laid down for the children of Israel, his seed, that if they obey his laws, he will bless them, and if they disobey his laws, he will curse them. So we're getting into chapter 20 of Deuteronomy. Courage for battle. When thou goest out to battle against thine enemies, and seest horses and chariots, and the people more than thou, be not afraid of them. For Mighty God AHAYAH thy Elohim is with thee, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And it shall be, when you are come nigh unto the battle, that the priest shall approach and speak unto the people, and shall say unto them, Hear, O Israel, ye approach this day into battle against your enemies. Let not your heart faint. Fear not, and do not tremble, neither be ye terrified because of them. For Mighty God AHAYAH your Elohim is he that goeth with you to fight for you against your enemies, to save you. And the officer shall speak unto the people, saying, What man is there that had built a new house, and had not dedicated it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man dedicate it. And what man is he that had planted a vineyard, and had not yet eaten of it? Let him also go and return into his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man eat of it. And what man is there that had betrothed a wife, and had not taken her? Let him go and return into his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man take her. And the officers shall speak further unto the people, and they shall say, What man is there that is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return into his house, lest his brethren heart faint as well as his heart. And it shall be, when the officers have made an end of speaking to the people, that they shall make captains of the armies to lead the people. When thou comest nigh into a city to fight against it, then proclaim peace unto it. And it shall be, if it make thee answer of peace, and open unto thee, then it shall be that all the people that is found therein shall be tributaries unto thee, and they shall serve thee. And if it will make no peace with thee, but will make war against thee, then thou shalt besiege it. And when Mighty God AHAYAH thy Elohim hath delivered it into thy hands, thou shalt smite every male thereof with the edge of the sword. But the women and the little ones, and the cattle, and all that is in the city, even all the spoil thereof, shalt thou take unto thyself, and thou shalt eat the spoil of thine enemies, which Mighty God AHAYAH had given thee. Thou shalt do unto all the cities which are very far off from thee, which are not of the cities of these nations, but of the cities of these people, which AHAYAH thy mighty God do give thee for an inheritance, thou shalt save alive nothing that breatheth. But thou shalt utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, the Hivitites, and the Jebusites, as Mighty God AHAYAH thy Elohim had commanded thee, that they teach you not to do after all their abominations which they have done unto their gods. So should you sin against Mighty God AHAYAH? When thou shalt besiege a city a long time in making war against it to take it, thou shalt not destroy the trees thereof by forcing an axe against them, for thou mayest eat of them, and thou shalt not cut them down, for the tree of the field is man's life, to employ them in the siege. Only the trees which thou knowest that they be not trees for me, thou shalt destroy and cut them down, and thou shalt build bulwarks against the city that maketh war with thee until it be subdued. Chapter 21. If one be found slain in the land which Mighty God AHAYAH giveth thee to possess it, lying in the field, and it be not known who hath slain him, then thy elders and thy judges shall come forth, and they shall measure unto the cities which are round about him that is slain. And it shall be that the city which is next unto the slain man, even the elders of the city, shall take an heifer which had not been wrought with, and which had not drawn in the yoke, and the elders of the city shall bring down the heifer into a rough valley, which is neither eared nor sown, and shall strike off the heifer's neck there in the valley. And the priests, the sons of Levi, shall come near, for them AHAYAH thy mighty God had chosen to minister unto him, and to bless in the name of AHAYAH, and by their word shall every controversy and every stroke be tried. And all the elders of that city that are next unto the slain man shall wash their hands over the heifer that is beheaded in the valley. And they shall answer and say, Our hands have not shed this blood, neither have our eyes seen it. Be merciful, O AHAYAH, unto thy people Israel, whom thou hast redeemed, and lay not innocent blood unto thy people of Israel charge. And the blood shall be forgiven them. So shalt thou put away the guilt of innocent blood from among you, when thou shalt do that which is right in the sight of AHAYAH. When thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, and AHAYAH thy mighty God hath delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive, and seest among the captives a beautiful woman, and hast a desire unto her, that thou wouldest have her to thy wife, then thou shalt bring her home to thine house, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails. And she shall put the raiment of her captivity from off her, and shall remain in thine house, and bewail her father and her mother a full month. And after that thou shalt go in unto her, and be her husband, and she shall be thy wife. And it shall be, if thou have no delight in her, then thou shalt let her go whither she will, but thou shalt not sell her at all for money. Thou shalt not make merchandise of her, because thou hast humbled her. If a man have two wives, one beloved and another hated, and they have borne him children, both the beloved and the hated, and if the firstborn son be hers that was hated, then it shall be, when he maketh his sons to inherit that which he had, that he may not make the son of the beloved firstborn before the son of the hated, which is indeed the firstborn. But he shall acknowledge the son of the hated for the firstborn by giving him a double portion of all that he had, for he is the beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. If a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and that when they have chastened him will not hearken unto them, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him, and bring him out unto the elders of the city, of his city, and unto the gate of his place, and they shall say unto the elders of his city, This our son is stubborn and rebellious, he will not obey our voice, he is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones, that he die. So shalt thou put evil away from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear. And if a man have committed a sin worthy of death, and he be to put to death, and thou hang him on a tree, his body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but thou shalt in any wise bury him that day. For he that is hanged is accursed of God, that thy land be not defiled, which Mighty God AHAYAH thy Elohim giveth thee for an inheritance. Chapter 22. Excuse me. Thou shalt not see thy brother's ox or his sheep go astray, and hide thyself from them. Thou shalt in any case bring them again unto thy border, into thy brother. And if thy brother be not nigh unto thee, or if thou know him not, then thou shalt bring it unto thine own house, and it shall be with thee until thy brother seek after it, and thou shalt restore it to him again. In like manner shalt thou do with his ass, and so shalt thou do with his raiment, and with all lost things of thy brothers which he had lost, and thou hast found, shalt thou do likewise. Thou mayest not hide thyself. Thou shalt not see why thy brother's ass or his ox fall down by the way, and hide thyself from them. Thou shalt surely help him to lift them up again. The woman shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man, neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, for all that do so are abomination unto Mighty God AHAYAH. If a bird's nest chance to be before thee in the way in any tree, or on the ground, whether they be young ones or eggs, and the dam sitting upon the young or upon the eggs, thou shalt not take the dam with the young, but thou shalt in any wise let the dam go, and take the young to thee, that it may be well with thee, and that thou mayest prolong thy days. When thou buildest a new house, then thou shalt make a battlement for thy roof, that thou bring not blood upon thine house, if any man fall from thence. Thou shalt not sow thy vineyard with diverse seeds, lest thy fruit of thy seed which thou hast sown and the fruit of thy vineyard be defiled. Thou shalt not plow with an ox and an ass together. Thou shalt not wear a garment of diverse sorts, as of woolen and linen together. Thou shalt make thee fringes upon the four quarters of thy vesture, wherewith thou coverest thyself. If any man take a wife, and go in unto her, and hate her, and give occasions of speech against her, and bring up an evil name upon her, and say, I took this woman, and when I came to her, I found her not a maid, then shall the father of the damsel and her mother take and bring forth the tokens of the damsel's virginity unto the elders of the city in the gate. And the damsel's father shall say unto the elders, I gave my daughter unto this man to wife, and he hated her. And lo, he had given occasions of speech against her, saying, I found not thy daughter a maid, and yet these are the tokens of my daughter's virginity. And they shall spread the cloth before the elders of the city, and the elders of that city shall take that man and chastise him. And they shall immerse him in 100 shekels of silver, and give them unto the father of that damsel, because he had brought up an evil name upon a virgin of Israel, and she shall be his wife. He may not put her away all his days. But if this thing be true, and the tokens of the virginity be not found for the damsel, then they shall bring out the damsel to the door of her father's house, and the men of her city shall stone her with stones, that she die, because she had wrought folly in Israel, to play the whore in her father's house. So shalt thou put evil away from among you. If a man be found lying with a woman married to an husband, then they shall both of them die, both the man that lay with the woman and the woman. So shalt thou put away evil from Israel. If a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto an husband, and a man find her in the city, and lie with her, then ye shall bring them both out unto the gate of that city, and ye shall stone them with stones, that they die. The damsel because she cried not, being in the city, and the man because he had humbled his neighbor's wife. So thou shalt put away evil from among you. But if a man find a betrothed damsel in the field, and the man force her and lie with her, then the man only that lie with her shall die. But unto the damsel thou shalt do nothing. There is in the damsels no sin worthy of death. For as when a man riseth against his neighbor, and slayed him, even so is this matter. For he found her in the field, and betrothed damsel cried, and there was none to save her. If a man find a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed, and lay hold on her, and lie with her, and they be found, then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he had humbled her. He may not put her away all his days. A man shall not take his father's wife, nor discover his father's skirt. Chapter 23. He that is wounded in the stones, or had his privy member cut off, shall not enter into the congregation of AHAYAH, our mighty God. A bastard shall not enter into the congregation of AHAYAH, our mighty God. Even to his 10th generation shall he not enter into the congregation of AHAYAH. An Ammonite, or Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of AHAYAH. Even to their 10th generation shall they not enter into the congregation of AHAYAH forever. Because they met you not with bread and with water in the way when ye came forth out of Egypt, and because they hired against thee Balaam the son of Beor of Pethor of Mesopotamia to curse thee. Nevertheless, AHAYAH thy mighty God would not hearken unto Balaam, but AHAYAH thy mighty God turned the curse into a blessing unto thee, because AHAYAH thy mighty God loved thee. Thou shalt not seek their peace, nor their prosperity all thy days forever. Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, for he is thy brother. Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian, because thou wast a stranger in his land. The children that are begotten of them shall enter into the congregation of AHAYAH in their 3rd generation. When the host goeth forth against thine enemies, then keep thee from every wicked thing. If there be among you any man that is not clean by reason of uncleanness, that chanceth him by night, then shall he go abroad out of the camp. He shall not come within the camp, but it shall be when evening cometh on, he shall wash himself with water, and when the sun is down, he shall come into the camp again. Thou shalt have a place also without the camp, whither thou shalt go forth abroad, and thou shalt have a paddle upon thy weapon, and it shall be, when thou wilt ease thyself abroad, thou shalt dig therewith, and shalt turn back, and cover that which cometh from thee. For Mighty God AHAYAH walketh in the midst of thy camp, to deliver thee, and to give up thine enemies before thee. Therefore shall thy camp be holy, that he see no unclean thing in thee, and turn away from thee. Thou shalt not deliver unto his master the servant which is escaped from his masters unto thee. He shall dwell with thee, even among you, in the place which he shall choose, in one of thy gates, where it like him best. Thou shalt not oppress him. There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel, meaning no gays or lesbians. Thou shalt not bring the hire of a whore or the price of a dog into the house of AHAYAH thy mighty God for any vow, for even both these are abomination unto Mighty God AHAYAH. Thou shalt not lend upon usury to thy brother, usury of money, usury of victuals, usury of anything that is lent upon usury. Unto a stranger thou mayest lend upon usury, but unto thy brother thou shalt not lend upon usury, that AHAYAH thy mighty God may bless thee in all that thou settest thine hand to in the land whither thou goest to possess it. When thou shalt vow a vow unto AHAYAH thy mighty God, thou shalt not slack to pay it, for AHAYAH thy mighty God will surely require it of thee, and it would be sin in thee. But if thou shalt forbear to vow, it shall be no sin in thee. That which is gone out of thy lips thou shalt keep and perform, even a free will offering, according as thou hast vowed unto AHAYAH thy mighty God, which thou hast promised with thy mouth. When thou comest into thy neighbor's vineyard, then thou mayest eat grapes thy field at thine own pleasure, but thou shalt not put any in thy vessels. When thou comest into the standing corn of thy neighbor's, then thou mayest pluck the ears with thine hand, but thou shalt not move a sickle unto thy neighbor's standing corn. Chapter 24. When a man had taken a wife and married her, and it come to pass that she find no favor in his eyes, because he had found some uncleanness in her, then let him write her a bill of divorcement, and give it in her hand, and send her out of his house. And when she is departed out of his house, she may go and be another man's wife. And if the latter husband hate her, and write her a bill of divorcement, and give it in her hand, and send it her out of his house, or if the latter husband die, which took her to be his wife, her former husband, which sent her away, may not take her again to be his wife. After that she is defiled, for that is an abomination before AHAYAH, and thou shalt not cause the land to sin, which AHAYAH thy mighty God giveth thee for an inheritance. When a man had taken a new wife, he shall not go out to war, neither shall he be charged with any business, but he shall be free at home 1 year, and shall cheer up his wife which he had taken. No man shall take the nether or the upper millstone to pledge, for he taketh a man's life to pledge. If a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel, and make it merchandise of him, or sell it him, then that thief shall die, and thou shalt put evil away from among you. Take heed in the plague of leprosy, that thou observe diligently, and do according to all that the priests the Levites shall teach you, as I command them, so ye shall observe to do. Remember what AHAYAH thy mighty God did unto Miriam by the way after that ye were come forth out of Egypt. When thou dost lend thy brother anything, thou shalt not go into his house to fetch his pledge. Thou shalt stand abroad, and the man to whom thou dost lend shall bring out the pledge abroad unto thee. And if the man be poor, thou shalt not sleep with his pledge. In any case thou shalt deliver him the pledge again when the sun goeth down, that he may sleep in his own raiment, and bless thee. And it shall be righteous unto thee before AHAYAH thy mighty God. Thou shalt not oppress an hired servant that is poor and needy, whether he be of thy brethren or of thy stranger that are in thy land within thy gates. At his day thou shalt give him his hire, neither shall the sun go down upon it, for he is poor, and setteth his heart upon it, lest he cry against thee unto AHAYAH, and it be sin unto thee. The fathers shall not be put to death for the children, neither shall the children be put to death for the fathers. Every man shall be put to death for his own sin. Thou shalt not pervert the judgment of the stranger, nor of the fatherless, nor take a widow's raiment to pledge. But thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondman in Egypt, and AHAYAH thy mighty God redeemed thee thence. Therefore I command thee to do this thing. When thou cuttest down thine harvest in thy field, and hast forgot a sheaf in the field, thou shalt not go again to fetch it. It shall be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow, that mighty God AHAYAH may bless thee in all the work of thy hands. When thou beatest thine olive tree, thou shalt not go over the boughs again. It shall be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow. When thou gatherest the grapes of thy vineyard, thou shalt not glean it afterward. It shall be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow. And thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondman in the land of Egypt. Therefore I command thee to do this thing. Chapter 25. If there be a controversy between men, and thy come into judgment, that the judges may judge them, then they shall justify the righteous, and condemn the wicked. It shall be, if the wicked man be worthy to be beaten, then the judge shall cause him to lie down, and to be beaten before his face according to his fault by a certain number. 40 stripes he may give him, and not exceed less. If he should exceed and beat him above these with many stripes, then thy brother shall seem vile unto thee. Thou shalt not muzzle the ox when he treadeth out the corn. If brethren dwell together, and one of them die, and have no child, the wife of the dead shall not marry without unto a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go in unto her, and take her to him to wife, and perform the duty of an husband's brother unto her. And it shall be that the firstborn which she beareth shall succeed in the name of his brother which is dead, that his name be not put out of Israel. And if the man like not to take his brother's wife, then let his brother's wife go up to the gate unto the elders, and say, My husband's brother refuseth to raise up unto his brother a name in Israel. He will not perform the duty of my husband's brother. Then the elders of his city shall call him, and speak unto him. And if he stand to it, and say, I like not to take her, then shall his brother's wife come unto him in the presence of the elders, and loose his shoe from off his foot, and spit in his face, and shall answer and say, So shall it be done unto that man that will not build up his brother's house. And his name shall be called in Israel, the house of him that had his shoe loosed. When men strive together one with another, and the wife of the one draweth near for to deliver her husband out of the hand of him that smited him, and putteth forth her hand, and taketh him by the secrets, then thou shalt cut off her hand. Thine eyes shall not pity her. Thou shalt not have in the bag diverse weight, a great and a small. Thou shalt not have in thine house diverse measures, a great and a small. But thou shalt have a perfect and just weight, a perfect and just measure shalt thou have, that thy days may be lengthened in the land which mighty God AHAYAH thy Elohim giveth thee. For all that do such things, and all that do unrighteously, or an abomination unto AHAYAH thy mighty God. Remember what Amalek did unto thee by the way when ye were come forth out of Egypt, how he met thee by the way, and smote the hindmost of thee, even all that were feeble behind thee, when thou wast faint and weary, and he feared not God. Therefore it shall be, when AHAYAH thy mighty God had given thee rest from all thine enemies round about, in the land which AHAYAH thy mighty God giveth thee for an inheritance to possess it, that thou shalt blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven, thou shalt not forget it. Chapter 26. Just Measures. And it shall be when thou art come in unto the land which thou, mighty God AHAYAH, thy Elohim, giveth thee for an inheritance, and possess it, and dwellest therein, that thou shalt take of the first of all the fruit of the earth, which thou shalt bring of thy land, that AHAYAH thy mighty God giveth thee, and shall put it in a basket, and shall go out unto the place which AHAYAH thy mighty God shall choose to place his name there. And thou shalt go unto the priest that shall be in those days, and say unto him, I profess this day unto AHAYAH thy mighty God, that I am come unto the country which AHAYAH sware unto our fathers for to give us. And the priest shall take the basket out of thine hand, and set it down before the altar of AHAYAH thy mighty God. And thou shalt speak and say before AHAYAH thy mighty God, a Syrian ready to perish was my father, and he went down into Egypt, and sojourned there with a few, and became there a nation great, mighty, and populous. And the Egyptian evil entreated us, and afflicted us, and laid upon us hard bondage. And when we cried unto AHAYAH thy mighty God, of our fathers, AHAYAH heard our voices, and looked on our affliction, and our labor, and our oppression. And AHAYAH brought us forth out of Egypt with a mighty hand, and with an outstretched arm, and with great trembleness, and with signs, and with wonders. And he had brought us into this place, and had given us this land, even a land that flowed with milk and honey. And now, behold, I have brought the first fruits of the land which thou, AHAYAH, hast given me, and thou shalt set it before AHAYAH thy mighty God, and worship before AHAYAH thy mighty God. And thou shalt rejoice in every good thing which AHAYAH thy mighty God had given unto thee, and unto thine house, and thou, and the Levite, and the stranger that is among you. When thou hast made an end of tiding all the tithes of thine increase, the third year, which is the year of tiding, and hast given it unto the Levites, the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, that they may eat within the gates and be filled. Then thou shalt say before AHAYAH thy mighty God, I have brought away the hallowed things out of mine house, and also have given them unto the Levite, and unto the stranger, to the fatherless, and to the widow, according to all thy commandments which thou hast commanded me. I have not transgressed thy commandments, neither have I forgotten them. I have not eaten therefore in my mourning, neither have I taken away aught thereof for any unclean use, nor given aught thereof for the dead. But I have hearkened to the voice of mighty God AHAYAH, and have done according to all that thou hast commanded me. Look down from thy holy habitation from heaven, and bless thy people Israel, and the land which thou hast given us, as thou swarest unto our fathers, a land that floweth with milk and honey. This day AHAYAH thy mighty God had commanded thee to do these statutes and judgments. Thou shalt therefore keep and do them with all thine heart and with all thy soul. Thou hast avouched AHAYAH this day to be thy mighty God, and to walk in his ways, and to keep his statutes and his commandments and his judgments, and to hearken unto his voice. And AHAYAH had avouched thee this day to be his peculiar people, as he had promised thee, and that thou shouldest keep all his commandments, and to make thee high above all nations which he had made, in praise and in name and in honor, and that thou mayest be an holy people unto AHAYAH thy mighty God, as he had spoken. Chapter 27. And Moses with the elders of Israel commanded the people, saying, Keep all the commandments which I command you this day. And it shall be on the day when ye shall pass over Jordan into the land which AHAYAH thy mighty God giveth thee, that thou shalt set thee up great stones, and plaister them with plaster. And thou shalt write upon them all the words of this law when thou art passed over, that thou mayest go in unto the land which AHAYAH thy mighty God giveth thee, a land that floweth with milk and honey, as AHAYAH mighty God of thy fathers hath promised thee. Therefore it shall be, when ye be gone over Jordan, that ye shall set up these stones which I command you this day in Mount Ebal, and thou shalt plaister them with plaster. And there shalt thou build an altar unto Ahiah thy mighty God, our El Elohe, an altar of stones. Thou shalt not lift up any iron tool upon them. Thou shalt build the altar of Ahiah thy El Elohe, thy mighty God, of whole stones, and thou shalt offer burnt offerings thereupon unto Ahiah thy mighty God. And thou shalt offer peace offerings, and shalt eat there, and rejoice before Ahiah thy El Elohe. And thou shalt write upon the stones all the words of this law very plainly. And Moses and the priests and the Levites spake unto all Israel, saying, Take heed and hearken, O Israel, this day thou art become the people of Ahiah thy mighty God. Thou shalt therefore obey the voice of Ahiah thy El Elohe, and do his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day. And Moses charged the people the same day, saying, These shall stand upon Mount Gerizim to bless the people when ye are come over Jordan, Simeon and Levi and Judah and Issachar and Joseph and Benjamin. And these shall stand upon Mount Ebal to curse Reuben and Gad and Asher and Zebulun, Dan and Naphtali. And the Levites shall speak and say unto all the men of Israel with a loud voice, Cursed be the man that maketh any graven or molten image, an abomination unto Ahiah, the work of the hands of the craftsmen, and put it in a secret place. And all the people shall answer and say, Amen. Cursed be he that setteth light by his father or his mother, and all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be he that removeth his neighbor's landmark, and all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be he that maketh the blind to wander out of the way, and all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be he that perverted the judgment of the stranger, fatherless, and widow, and all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be he that lied with his father's wife, because he uncovered his father's skirt, and all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be he that lied with a manner of beasts, and all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be he that lied with his sister, the daughter of his father, or the daughter of his mother, and all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be he that lied with his mother-in-law, and all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be he that smited his neighbor secretly, and all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be he that taketh reward to slay an innocent person, and all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be he that confirmeth not all the words of this law to do them, and all the people shall say, Amen. Chapter 28. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of Ahiah thy mighty God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that Ahiah thy mighty God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth, and all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of Ahiah thy El Elohe. Blessed shalt thou be in the city, and blessed shalt thou be in the field. Blessed shall be the fruit of the body, and the fruit of thy ground, and the fruit of thy cattle, the increase of thy kine, and the flocks of thy sheep. Blessed shall be thy basket and thy store. Blessed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and blessed shalt thou be when thou goest out. Ahiah shall cause thine enemies that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face. They shall come out against thee one way, and flee before thee 7 ways. Ahiah thy mighty God shall command the blessing upon thee in thy storehouses, and in all that thou settest thine hand unto, and he shall bless thee in the land which Ahiah thy mighty God giveth thee. Ahiah shall establish thee an holy people unto himself, as he had sworn unto thee, if thou shalt keep the commandments of Ahiah thy El Elohe, and walk in his ways. And all people of the earth shall see that thou art called by my name of Ahiah, and they shall be afraid of thee. And Ahiah shall make thee plenteous in goods, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy ground, in the land which Ahiah sware unto thy fathers to give thee. Ahiah thy mighty God shall open unto thee his good treasure, the heaven, to give the rain unto thy land in his season, and to bless all the work of thy hand, and thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow. And Ahiah shall make thee the head and not the tail, and thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath, if that thou hearken unto the commandments of Ahiah thy mighty God, which I command thee this day to observe and to do them. And thou shalt not go aside from any of the words which I command thee this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other gods to serve them. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Ahiah thy mighty God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep. Cursed shall thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shall thou be when thou goest out. Ahiah thy mighty God shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke in all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. Ahiah thy mighty God shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. Ahiah thy mighty God shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with the sword, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. And thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thee shall be iron. Ahiah thy mighty God shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. From heaven shall it come down upon thee until thou be destroyed. Ahiah thy mighty God shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. And thy carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away. No man shall fray them away. Ahiah will smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the emerods, and with the scab, and with the itch whereof thou canst not be healed. Ahiah shall smite thee with madness, and blindness, and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness. And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thy hand. The fruit of thy land and all thy labor shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed alway, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. Ahiah thy mighty God shall smite thee in the knees and in the legs with a sore botch that cannot be healed, from the sole of thy foot unto the top of thy head. Ahiah shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all the nations whither Ahiah thy mighty God shall lead thee. Thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shalt gather but little in, for the locust shall consume it. Thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine, nor gather the grapes, for the worms shall eat them. Thou shalt have olive trees throughout all thy coasts, but thou shalt not anoint thyself with the oil, for thine olive shall cast her fruit. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. All thy trees and fruit of thy land shall be locusts consumed. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and shall come down very low. And thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of AHAYAH thy mighty God, your Creator, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Because thou servest not AHAYAH thy mighty God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which mighty God AHAYAH shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. AHAYAH shall bring a nation against thee from far from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flight, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land, until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee neither corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trusted throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all the land which AHAYAH thy mighty God had given thee. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which AHAYAH thy mighty God had given thee in the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee, so that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be of evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children which he shall leave, so that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he had nothing left in him the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates. The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for the delicateness and tenderness, her eyes shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear, for she shall eat them for want of things, secretly in the siege and straitness, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates. If thou wilt not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name, AHAYAH thy mighty God, then AHAYAH will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of long continuance, and sore sickness, and a long continuance. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the disease of Egypt, which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Also every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, them will AHAYAH bring upon thee until thou be destroyed. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of AHAYAH thy mighty God. And it shall come to pass that AHAYAH thy mighty God rejoice over you to do you good and to multiply you. So AHAYAH will rejoice over you to destroy you and to bring you to naught, and ye shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. And AHAYAH thy mighty God shall scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth even into the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And among these nations shall thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. But AHAYAH thy mighty God shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind, and thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear the day and night, and shall have none assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, Would God it were even, and at even thou shalt say, Would God it were morning. For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see, and Ahiah shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Chapter 29. These are the words of the covenant which Ahiah commanded Moses to make with the children of Israel in the land of Moab, beside the covenant which he made with them in Horeb. And Moses called unto all Israel, and said unto them, You have seen all that Ahiah thy mighty God did before your eyes in the land of Egypt, unto Pharaoh, and unto all the servants, and unto all his land. The great temptations which thine eyes have seen, the signs and those great miracles. Yet Ahiah thy mighty God had not given you an heart to perceive, and eyes to see, and ears to hear unto this day. And I have led you 40 years in the wilderness. Your clothes are not waxen old upon you, and thy shoe is not waxen old upon thy foot. You have not eaten bread, neither have ye drunk wine or strong drink, that you might know that I am Ahiah your mighty God. And when you came into this place, Sihon, the king of Heshbon, and Og, the king of Bashan, came out against us into battle, and we smote them. And we took their land, and gave it for an inheritance unto the Reubenites, and to the Gadites, and to the half tribe of Manasseh. Keep therefore the words of this covenant, and to do them, that ye may prosper in all that you do. You stand this day, all of you, before Ahiah your Elohi, your mighty God, your captains of your tribes, your elders, and your officers, with all the men of Israel, your little ones, your wives, and thy stranger that is in thy camp, from the hewer of thy wood unto the drawer of thy water, that thou shouldest enter into covenant with Ahiah thy mighty God, and unto his oath which Ahiah thy mighty God maketh with thee this day, that he may establish thee today for a people unto himself, and that he may be unto thee a mighty God, as he had said unto thee, and as he had sworn unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Neither with you only do I make this covenant and this oath, but with him that standeth here with us this day before Ahiah thy mighty God, and also with him that is not here with us this day. For you know how we have dwelt in the land of Egypt, and how we came through the nations which ye passed by. And you have seen their abominations and their idols, wood and stone, silver and gold, which were among them, lest there should be among you man or woman, or family or tribe, whose heart turneth away this day from Ahiah thy mighty God, to go and serve the gods of these nations, lest there should be among you a root that beareth gall and wormwood. And it come to pass, when he heareth the words of this curse, that he blessed himself in his heart, saying, I shall have peace, though I walk in the imagination of my heart, to add drunkenness to thirst. Ahiah will not spare him, but then the anger of Ahiah and his jealousy shall smoke against that man, and all the curses that are written in this book shall lie upon him, and Ahiah shall blot out his name from under heaven. And Ahiah shall separate him unto evil out of all the tribes of Israel, according to all the curses of the covenant that are written in this book of the law. So that the generation to come of your children that shall rise up after you, and the stranger that shall come from a far land, shall say when they see the plagues of the land, and the sickness which Ahiah had laid unto it, and that the whole land thereof is brimstone and salt and burning, that it is not sown, nor buried, nor any grass groweth therein, like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, and Admah and Zeboim, which Ahiah overthrew in his anger and in his wrath. Even all nations shall say, Wherefore hath Ahiah done thus unto this land? What meaneth the heat of this great anger? Then the men shall say, because they have forsaken the covenant of Mighty God AHAYAH of their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them forth out of the land of Egypt. For they went and served other gods and worshipped them, gods whom they knew not, and whom he had not given unto them. And the anger of AHAYAH was kindled against this land, to bring upon it all the curses that are written in this book. And AHAYAH thy mighty God rooted them out of their land in anger and in wrath and in great indignation, and cast them into another land, as it is this day. The secret things belong unto AHAYAH our mighty God, but those things which are revealed unto us and to our children forever, that we may do all thy words of this law. Chapter 30. And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations whither AHAYAH thy mighty God hath driven thee, and shall return unto AHAYAH thy mighty God, and shall obey his voice, according to all that I have commanded thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul. That then AHAYAH thy mighty God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither AHAYAH thy mighty God hath scattered thee. If any of thine be driven out unto the utmost parts of heaven, from thence will AHAYAH thy mighty God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. And AHAYAH thy mighty God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good, and multiply thee above thy fathers. And AHAYAH thy mighty God, our El Elohi, will circumcise thine heart and the heart of thy seed, to love AHAYAH thy mighty God with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. And AHAYAH thy mighty God will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. And thou shalt return and obey the voice of AHAYAH thy mighty God, and do all his commandments which I command thee this day. And AHAYAH thy mighty God will make thee plenteous in every work of thine hand, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy land for good. For AHAYAH thy mighty God will again rejoice over thee for good, as he rejoiced over thy fathers. If thou shalt hearken unto the voice of AHAYAH thy mighty God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which are written in this book of the law, and if thou turn unto AHAYAH thy mighty God with all thine heart and with all thy soul, for this commandment which I command thee this day, it is not hidden from thee, neither is it far off. It is not in heaven, that thou shouldest say, who shall go up for us to heaven and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it. Neither is it beyond the sea, that thou shouldest say, who shall go over the sea for us and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it. But the word is very nigh unto thee, in thy mouth and in thy heart, that thou mayest do it. See, I have set before thee this day life and good, and death and evil. In that I command thee this day to love AHAYAH thy mighty God, to walk in his ways, and do keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, that thou mayest live and multiply. And AHAYAH thy mighty God shall bless thee in the land whither thou goest to possess it. But if thine heart turn away, so that thou wilt not hear, but shall be drawn away and worship other gods and serve them, I denounce unto you this day that ye shall surely perish, and that ye shall not prolong your days upon the land whither thou passest over Jordan to go to possess it. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live, that thou mayest love AHAYAH thy El Elohi, and that thou mayest obey his voice, and that thou mayest cleave unto him, for he is thy life and the length of thy days, that thou mayest dwell in the land which AHAYAH sware unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give them. Chapter 31. And Moses went and spake these words unto all Israel. And he said unto them, I am 120 years old this day. I can no more go out and come in. Also AHAYAH hath said unto me, Thou shalt not go over this Jordan. AHAYAH thy mighty God, our El Elohi, he will go over before thee, and he will destroy these nations from before thee, and thou shalt possess them, and Joshua he shall go over before thee, as Mighty God AHAYAH has said. And AHAYAH thy Elohim shall do unto them as he did to Sihon, and to all kings of the Amorites, and unto the land of them whom he destroyed. And AHAYAH thy Elohim shall give them up before your face, that ye may do unto them according unto all the commandments which I have commanded you. Be strong and of good courage, fear not, nor be afraid of them, for AHAYAH thy mighty God, he it is that do go with thee, and will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. And Moses called unto Joshua, and said unto him in the sight of all Israel, Be strong and of good courage, for thou must go with this people into the land which AHAYAH had sworn unto their fathers to give them, and thou shalt cause them to inherit it. And AHAYAH he it is that do go before thee, he will be with thee, he will not fail thee, neither forsake thee. Fear not, neither be dismayed. And Moses wrote this law, and delivered it unto the priests, the sons of Levi, which bear the ark of the covenant of AHAYAH, and unto all the elders of Israel. And Moses commanded them, saying, At the end of every 7 years, in the solemnity of the year of release, in the feast of the tabernacles, when all Israel is come to appear before Mighty God AHAYAH thy Elohim, in the place which he shall choose, thou shalt read this law before all Israel in their hearing. Gather the people together, men and women and children, and thy stranger that is within thy gates, that they may hear, and that they may learn, and fear AHAYAH thy mighty God, and observe to do all the words of this law. And that their children which have not known anything may hear and learn to fear AHAYAH thy mighty God, as long as you live in the land whither you go over Jordan to possess it. And AHAYAH said unto Moses, Behold, thy days approach that thou must die. Call Joshua, and present yourself in the tabernacle of the congregation, that I may give him a charge. And Moses and Joshua went and presented themselves in the tabernacle of the congregation. And AHAYAH appeared in the tabernacle in a pillar of a cloud, and the pillar of the cloud stood over the door of the tabernacle. And AHAYAH said unto Moses, Behold, thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, and this people will rise up and go a-whoring after the gods of the strangers of the land whither they go to be among them, and will forsake me, and break my covenant which I have made with them. Then my anger shall be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake them, and I will hide my face from them, and they shall be devoured, and many evils and troubles shall befall them, so that they will say in that day, Or not these evils come upon us, because our God is not among us? And I will surely hide my face in that day for all the evils which they shall have wrought, in that they are turned unto other gods. Now therefore write ye this song for you, and teach it the children of Israel. Put it in their mouths, that this song may be a witness for me against the children of Israel. For when I shall have brought them into the land which I swear unto their fathers, that floweth with milk and honey, and they shall have eaten and filled themselves, and waxen fat, then will they turn unto other gods, and serve them, and provoke me, and break my covenant. And it shall come to pass, when many evils and troubles are befallen them, that this song shall testify against them as a witness, for it shall not be forgotten out of the mouth of their seed. For I know their imagination which they go about, even now, before I have brought them into the land which I swear. Moses therefore wrote this song the same day, and taught it the children of Israel. And he gave Joshua the son of Nun a charge, and said, Be strong and of good courage, for thou shalt bring the children of Israel into the land which I swear unto them, and I will be with thee. And it came to pass, when Moses had made an end writing the words of this law in a book until they were finished, then Moses commanded the Levites which bear the ark of the covenant of AHAYAH, saying, Take this book of the law, and put it in the side of the ark of the covenant of AHAYAH your mighty God, that it may be there for a witness against thee. For I know thy rebellion and thy stiff neck. Behold, while I am yet alive with you this day, you have been rebellious against AHAYAH. And how much more after my death? Gather unto me all the elders of your tribes and your officers, that I may speak these words in their ears, and call heaven and earth to record against them. For I know that after my death ye will utterly corrupt yourselves, and turn aside from the way which I have commanded you, and evil will befall you in the latter days, because you will do evil in the sight of Ahiah thy mighty God, to provoke him to anger through the work of your hands. And Moses spake in the ears of all the congregation of Israel the words of this song until they were ended. Chapter 32. Give ear, O you heavens, and I will speak, and hear, O ye earth, the words of my mouth. My doctrine shall drop as the rain, my speech shall distill as the dew, as the small rain upon the tender herb, and as the shower upon the grass. Because I will publish the name of Ahiah, ascribe ye greatness unto our mighty God. He is the rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are judgment, a mighty God of truth and without iniquity, just and right is he. They have corrupted themselves, their spot is not the spot of his children, they are a perverse and crooked generation. Do ye thus requite Ahiah, O foolish people, and unwise? Is not he thy father that had brought thee? Had he not made thee and established thee? Remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations. Ask thy fathers, and he will show thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee. When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. For Ahiah's portion is his people, Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. He found him in a desert land, and in the waste howling wilderness he led him about, he instructed him, he kept him as the apple of his eye. As an eagle stirred up her nest, fluttered over her young, spreaded abroad her wings, taken them, buried them on her wings. So Ahiah alone did lead him, and there was no strange God with him. He made him ride on the high places of the earth, that he might eat the increase of the fields, and he made him to suck honey out of the rock, and oil out of the flinty rock, butter of kine, and milk of sheep, with fat of lambs and rams of the breed of Bashan, and goats with the fat of the kidneys of wheat, and thou didst drink the pure blood of the grape. But Jeshurun waxed fat, and kicked, thou art waxen fat, thou art grown thick, thou art covered with fatness. Then he forsook mighty God Ahiah, which made him, and lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods, with abominations provoked they him to anger. They sacrificed unto devils, not to mighty God Ahiah, to gods whom they knew not. To new gods they came newly up, whom your fathers fear not. Of the rock that begat thee, thou art unmindful, and hast forgotten mighty God Ahiah, that formed thee. And when Ahiah saw it, he abhorred them, because of the provokings of his sons and of his daughters. And he said, I will hide my face from them, I will see what their end shall be. For they are a very froward generation, children in whom is no faith. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. For a fire is kindled in mine anger, and shall burn into the lowest hell, and shall consume the earth with her increase, and set on fire the foundations of the mountains. I will heap mischiefs upon them, I will spin mine arrows upon them. They shall be burnt with hunger, and devoured with burning heat, and with bitter destruction. I will also send the teeth of beasts upon them, with the poison of serpents of the dust. The sword without and terror within shall destroy both the young man and the virgin, the suckling also with the man of gray hairs. I said I would scatter them into corners, I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. Were it not that I feared the wrath of the enemy, lest their adversaries shall behave themselves strangely, and lest they shall say, Our hand is high, and Ahiah had not done all this. For they are a nation void of counsel, neither is there any understanding in them. Oh, that they were wise, that they understood this, that they would consider their latter end. How should one chase 1,000, and two put 10,000 to flight, except their rock had sold them, and AHAYAH thy mighty God had shut them up? For their rock is not as our rock, even our enemies themselves being judges. For their vine is of the vine of Sodom, and of the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are grapes of gall, their clusters are bitter. Their wine is the poison of dragons, and the cruel venom of asps. Is not this laid up in store with me, and sealed up among my treasures? To me belongeth vengeance and recompense. Their foot shall slide in due time, for the day of their calamity is at hand, and the things that shall come upon them make haste. For mighty God AHAYAH shall judge his people, and repent himself for his servants, when he see that their power is gone, and there is none shut up or left. And he shall say, where are their gods, their rock in whom they trusted, which did eat the fat of their sacrifices, and drank the wine of their drink offerings? Let them rise up and help you, and be your protection. See now that even I, am he, that there is no God with me. I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. For I lift up my hand to heaven and say, I live forever. If I whet my glittering sword, and mine hand take hold on judgment, I will render vengeance to my enemies, and will reward them that hate me. I will make mine arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh, and that with the blood of the slain and of the captives, from the beginning of the vengeance upon the enemy. Rejoice, O you nations, with his people, for his will of, repeat 43, verse 43 and 33. Rejoice, O you nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants, and will render vengeance to his adversaries, and will be merciful unto his land and to his people. And Moses came and spake all the words of this song in the ears of the people, and he, Hoshea, the son of Nun. And Moses made an end of speaking all these words to all Israel. And he said unto them, Set your hearts into all the words which I testify among you this day, which ye shall command your children to observe, to do all the words of this law. For it is not a vain thing for you, because it is your life. And through this thing you shall prolong your days in the land, whether you go over Jordan to possess it. And AHAYAH thy Elohim spake unto Moses that self same day, saying, Get thee up into this mountain, Abiram, unto Mount Nebo, which is in the land of Moab, that it's over against Jericho, and behold the land of Canaan, which I give unto the children of Israel for a possession. And die in the mount whither thou goest up, and be gathered unto thy people, as Aaron thy brother died in Mount Hor, and was gathered unto his people. Because ye trespassed against me among the children of Israel at the waters of Meribah Kadesh, in the wilderness of Zin, because ye sanctified me not in the midst of the children of Israel. Yet thou shalt see the land before thee, but thou shalt not go thither unto the land which I give the children of Israel. Chapter 33. And this is the blessing wherewith Moses, the man of Mighty God AHAYAH, blessed the children of Israel before his death. And he said, Mighty God AHAYAH came from Sinai, and rose up from Seir. Unto them he shined forth from Mount Paran, and he came with 10,000s of saints. From his right hand went a fiery law for them. Yea, he loved the people, all his saints are in thy hand, and they sat down at the feet, every one shall receive of thy words. Moses commanded us a law, even the inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. And he was king in Jeshurun, when the heads of the people and the tribes of Israel were gathered together. Let Reuben live and not die, and let not his men be few. And this is the blessing of Judah. And he said, Hear, mighty God AHAYAH, the voice of Judah, and bring him unto his people. Let his hands be sufficient for him, and be thou an help to him from his enemies. And of Levi he said, Let thy Thummim and thy Urim be with thy Holy One, whom thou didst prove at Massa, and with whom thou didst strive at the waters of Meribah. Who said unto his fathers and to his mother, I have not seen him, neither did he acknowledge his brethren, nor knew his own children, for they have observed thy word and kept thy covenant. They shall teach Jacob thy judgment, and Israel thy law. They shall put incense before thee, and hold burnt sacrifice upon thine altar. Bless AHAYAH his substance, and accept the work of his hands. Smite through the loins of them that rise against him, and of them that hate him, that they rise not again. And of Benjamin he said, The beloved of AHAYAH shall dwell in safety by him, and AHAYAH shall cover him all the days long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders. And of Joseph he said, Blessed of AHAYAH be his land, for the precious things of heaven, for the dew, and for the deep that couched beneath, and for the precious fruits brought forth by the sun, and for the precious things put forth by the moon, and for the chief things of the ancient mountains, and for the precious things of the lasting hills, and for the precious things of the earth, and fullness thereof, and for the good will of him that dwell in the bush. Let the blessing come upon the head of Joseph, and upon the top of the head of him that was separated from his brethren. His glory is like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth. And they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh. And of Zebulun he said, Rejoice, Zebulun, in thy going out, and Issachar in thy tents. They shall call the people into the mountain. There they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness, for they shall suck of the abundance of the seas, and of the treasures hid in the sand. And of Gad he said, Blessed be he that enlarged Gad, he dwelleth as a lion, and teareth the arm with the crown of his head, And he provided the first part for himself, because therein a portion of the lawgiver was he seated. And he came with the heads of the people. He executed the justice of AHAYAH, and his judgments with Israel. And of Dan he said, Dan is a lion's whelp, he shall leap from Bashan. And of Naphtali he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor, and full with the blessing of AHAYAH, possess thou the west and the south. And of Asher he said, Let Asher be blessed with children, let him be acceptable to his brethren, and let him dip his foot in oil. Thy shoes shall be iron and brass, and as thy days, so shall thy strength be. There is none like unto Mighty God AHAYAH of Jeshurun, who rideth upon the heaven in thy help, and in his excellency on the sky. The eternal mighty God is thy refuge, and underneath are thy everlasting arms. And he shall thrust out the enemy from before thee, and shall say, Destroy them. Israel then shall dwell in safety alone. The mountain of Jacob shall be upon a land of corn and wine. Also his heavens shall drop down dew. Happy art thou, O Israel, who is like unto thee, O people saved by AHAYAH, the shield of thy help, and who is the sword of thy excellency. And thine enemies shall be found liars unto thee, and thou shalt tread upon their high places. Chapter 34, the last chapter. And Moses went up from the plains of Moab unto the mountain of Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, that is over against Jericho. And AHAYAH showed him all the land of Gilead unto Dan, and all Naphtali, and the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, and all the land of Judah unto the utmost sea, and the south, and the plain of the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees, unto Zoar. And AHAYAH Mighty God said unto him, This is the land which I sware unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob, saying, I will give it unto thy seed. I have caused thee to see it with thine eyes, but thou shalt not go over thither. So Moses thy servant of AHAYAH died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of Mighty God AHAYAH. And he buried him in a valley in the land of Moab, over against Beth Peor, but no man knoweth of his sepulchre unto this day. And Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eye was not dim, nor his natural force abated. And the children of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days, so the days of weeping and mourning for Moses were ended. And Joshua the son of Nun was full of the spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hand upon him, and the children of Israel, hearkening to him, did as Mighty God AHAYAH commanded Moses. And there arose not a prophet since in Israel like unto Moses, whom AHAYAH knew face to face, in all the signs and the wonders which Mighty God AHAYAH sent him to do in the land of Egypt, to Pharaoh and to all his servants and to all his land, and in all that mighty hand, and in all the great terror which Moses showed in the sight of Israel. And that's the end of Deuteronomy. Thanks for listening.